One of the things that very few people understand is how important mental health is to financial freedom. Not only earning it, but the process of getting there. We are going to have a deep dive around mental health. We are going to talk about shifting from doubt to determined. We are going to talk about what are the realities of doing the work and why that is an important step to understand. And if we have time, we're going to get into moving forward in the face of fear. We're going to have this conversation with the run and only Fred. How you doing, Fred?
Good, Mike, and yourself. How's everything going for you today?
I'm doing very well, man. We got to meet in Las Vegas. I appreciate getting to know
Yeah.
you. You are a husband of your better half. Tamika has been part of the family for quite some time, so I appreciated you both coming down from Alaska, of all places.
All the way from Alaska, man. That was a fun time. We were excited to be there with everybody. We had been watching online and, gaining a lot of knowledge and information from one rental at a time from you and, of course, the millionaires. And we just thought it would be really cool to go and see it all in one place. And, of course, the great networking opportunity. So, yeah, it was cool, man. It was great. We were
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah, the energy, the networking, the conversations really even exceeded my high expectations,
Oh, I'm
uh,
sure.
which was which was really cool. But let's tell the folks who you are and what you do as a profession, and then we can get into mental health.
Cool. So I am a mental health clinician, a licensed professional counselor here in Alaska. I work, in the world of outpatient. I've worked in all kinds of capacities of counseling. Of course, people call it therapy, people call it counseling. Um, I mean, it's not really the same. I guess, there are some differences. And then, of course, I'm also a senior pastor here in Alaska. I pastor a church, and that's my world, man. I people every day. I guess I use the word people as a verb, and so I kind of people every day, and
Mm.
that's my passion, and people are my passion.
You people every day. I've never heard people use it as a verb, but
Yeah,
believe me, I get it. I get it. Um, so let's talk about the first thing, right? You send me a laundry list of things we could get into, and I think
yeah,
the first one that hit home with me is the importance of shifting a mindset from doubt to determined.
you got
Break
it.
that down for me, and really let's try to help some people understand where they might be.
Yeah, cool. And that's I love that, Mike. I love jumping right into it. So you're about to get me really excited, man. So if I geek out a little bit,
Yes.
please excuse me. Um, so I like to, I like to define things first, right? Because
Okay.
I think that it's important to define things. And what I mean by that is, what are we really talking about?
Mhm.
Because a lot of times, people could look at a word and it means 50 million things to them.
Amen.
But when we talk about doubt to determine in this space specifically, we're talking about breaking past something, right? There's something in the way of getting to what we want, so to
Mhm.
say. And so it's what's the doubt? What's the fear? What's the suspicion that we might have? I mean, I guess you could say the Merriam-Webster definition would be the question of truth, the lack of confidence. To define kind of doubt, right? What are we not confident about? And what are we suspecting may or may not happen, right? A lot of people are suspecting something might not happen, so that creates a lot of fuel behind doubt. If we were to define determine would be like an aspect of being certain about something, like, hey, I know I'm going to do this, and because I know I'm going to do this and because I have certain facts that are going forward, I feel like I can do this, right? So because I can do it now, I have some fuel behind being determined. Why are those two definitions important? Because your book is what helped me join my wife on from going doubt to determined. So that's why this
Mm.
conversation is so huge for me, because this is a personal conversation for me, right? So I'm kind of sharing. I'm going to be sharing a little bit of my personal journey in this conversation because Tamika watched you first.
Yeah.
I had no, I had light interest in it. We had always talked about it. It had been kind of like a dream for us. Like, hey, we want to become financial free. One day we want to be able to, we want to be able to do this, and we want to be able to go and do that. And we have all of these ideas, but we had no idea, like, okay, how are we going to do that?
Mm.
Right. And so we would constantly see people talking about what they're doing and how they're doing it. But it was always a fear for us. And when she got a hold of One Rental at a Time, just a book, right? It was just a book.
Just a book.
Um,
Yeah.
after she found your YouTube channel, she started watching, and she was
Hmm.
talking to me about it. And the funny thing about it was, um, I had been in banking previous to counseling, so I understood numbers and I understood that world. But here's the problem: when I was in banking, I guess you could say I worked with a lot of people who had rentals, a
Uh-huh.
lot of landlords, and it was complaint after complaint after complaint. So I had a lot of bad ideas behind it, right? So that's what fueled my doubt, right? I was like, I never want to get involved in that business. People don't want to pay you. It feels like you're chasing rent all the time. I don't want to be that guy, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, so she was constantly talking to me about, this Michael Zuber. I'm watching Michael's channel today, and I'm thinking, yeah, okay, whatever. Just another
Are you
YouTube
cheating on
guy.
me?
Yeah, just another YouTube guy. Whatever. I'm just gonna keep going to work. I'm
Yeah.
gonna keep doing the W-2 thing, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
rat
Yeah.
race, because this is what's secure. That's
Yep.
another thing that fuels doubt. Is like I
I
know
get it.
this, but I don't know that, right? So finally, she got the book in the mail, and she read the book, and then she incorporated my daughter, who was like 16, 17 at the time, into
Oh,
it.
wow. I didn't know
She's the
that.
one that wrote a paper, I think, to you,
Oh,
and
yes.
she
Yes.
won.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she won. And so I was like, okay, so there might be some reality to this, right? Because most people, they're like, yeah, thousands of people send something in, you're not going to get anything out of it, whatever. So, then she got something back, and I was like, okay, maybe there's some reality to this. So I picked up the book and read it. I downloaded it to my Kindle,
Okay.
and I read it, and I was like, huh. And what I said to myself was, this is the first time I've read something where somebody is actually taking the time to go step by step and make it realistic, right?
Mm.
Because everybody else's plan and everybody else's program is so huge,
Yeah.
and it takes a big mental space that sometimes people don't have to grasp it, to just grasp it, right?
Hmm.
But One
Yeah.
Reel at a Time made it achievable, made it attainable. Does that make sense?
Oh, no, it absolutely does. And it's really funny. You'll know this, but this for the audience. I wrote one rental at a time for me. It was a selfish endeavor.
I think I remember you saying that one time.
Yeah, I got to the end. I retired. I started getting depressed. And how Olivia and I broke up the work. I was always finding deals and securing capital. She was running the books, right? And that separation worked for us. It was all good. It allowed me to stay focused on my W-2. But I really came to a moment where like I needed to go relive that 15 years,
Mm,
right? And the fact that you read it, all three of you, wife, daughter, and yourself, is
yeah.
awesome because I wrote it as a step by step. It's like, hey, this is all the good, bad, and the ugly that I remember of the journey. Um, so I'm glad that hit home because that's what I was trying to do. And it really,
You did
my
it.
goal was I wrote this book be a compliment to Rich Dad Poor Dad because when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it changed my life, but it didn't show me a process or a vision.
That's
And I'm like,
that's
there you
exactly
go.
it. That's exactly it. And not to interrupt you. I mean, I want you to
Oh,
finish that thought because that I think is going to help us dive right into the conversation of doubt to determine.
yes.
Because in Rich Dad Poor Dad, what he's really saying is he grew up in a sort of an environment in regard to poor dad, right? He
Hmm.
grew up in an environment where doubt would have been more fueled than determined, right?
Hmm.
And Rich Dad was more of a an environment where determination was like super, right? Like yeah, we
Yep.
welcome that, you know. And I
Yeah.
grew up in that. I grew up in a doubt world. I grew up with two W-2 parents. Never really thinking about let's try this. Let's step out and do it, right? I think the thing though is that most people will say, um, I don't really know how. And the thing with one rental at a time was, I will show you how,
Yeah.
right? Step by step, and I'll make it realistic. The other cool thing about one rental at a time, which and the reason why I'm really, I guess you could say, kind of marketing. I hate to use that word, but I'm sort of loosely marketing the book, right? And the reason why, because I've shared it with a lot of people, and here's why: because um, there is an idea of just do the first one, right?
Yeah.
Like I continue to say, just get past the first one, right? Because when you do the first one, you learn the process of doing it, and
Hmm.
you also make mistakes, right? So
Oh
one of the
yeah.
talking points I have is paying more attention to the success of the process, right?
Yeah.
So the process of the success. So what am I doing, as I'm moving towards? So the more you put your hands on it, right? There's that tactile kinesthetic learning, right? The more I hold it and the more I do it, the more my brain registers and it
Hmm.
becomes a habit. So once you get through that first one, the second one, while it might still seem, you know, a bit much to sort of bite off, it really isn't because you've done it already.
Hmm.
And if you can think that way, like I did this already, right?
Yeah.
Now you're starting to move from doubt to determined.
Yeah, that's it. That I'm glad that that comes through. Because my big thing is I just tell people to think about getting to four. Right. I lived in your world. I was in a doubt world. My parents, my dad went to work. My mom stayed home. Then she got a job later in life.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was the only path.
Right.
Nobody around me was rich. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
around me was an entrepreneur. I didn't know any better way. So, for me, it was just like, hey, let's just get one. I mean, that was my big grand plan in 2003 is let's just get to four because I know if I have four, when I'm 65, I'll have more options. That was the extent of my big vision.
Right.
It's wild.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think, I think that's huge when you mention Rich Dad and Poor Dad, and then you mention your context and why you were sort of compelled to write the book. Um, so let's get into the idea because I wanted to talk about this in two different spaces, right? So why do we doubt? Because that's the huge piece, and this for lack of better words, is more of a mental conversation more than a money conversation.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
Um,
go for it.
so the idea of doubt is how do we conquer doubt, right? Because most people are like, yeah, but that's great. Like I just can't switch my brain over to that. And so that's a good thing to realize that I just can't switch my brain over to that, which means that's good because that means that you can't just be sold on anything, right? So you can
Hmm.
celebrate that. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I do tell people when they're in a chair, ask yourself some questions. And so the first question is, what is it that scares me about the idea of that? What
Mm.
is that? The thing that I want to do, right? What is it that scares me about that? Um, Once you know what scares you about it, once you itemize it, right? Once you begin to make those lists of things that scare you about it, start educating yourself on how to get over those things,
Mhm.
right? How do I get past not knowing how to do that? Like some people might say, well, what scares me about it is, how do you even start? How do you get a loan? How do you find a property, right? How do
Mhm.
you how do you even know that you're going to be good at that, right? So okay, what scares you? Well, how do you figure out how you're going to be good at that? Well, are you good at math? Well, maybe I'm not good at math. So I start learning that. Are you good at are you a good reader? Maybe I'm not a good reader, right? So you become good at that. So you find out things about yourself. The reason we doubt is usually connected to something we think about ourselves.
Mm.
It's directly connected to ourselves. It's connected in a way that's usually negative, right? Because
Mhm.
it's not a matter of like somebody asking you in an interview, so tell me your weaknesses, and knowing those confidently, but it's a matter of something that you want to hide, that it would become exposed. Does that make sense? So
It
I
does.
doubt that I could do that, and the reason why I'm doubting is because if I get out there and I look really confident doing it, the last thing I want to do is to be exposed and fail,
Right.
right? And I
Mhm.
definitely don't want to fail in front of the people I love. I don't want to fail in front of my wife. I don't want to fail in front of my kids, right? And I don't want to lose everything that we've worked for. Because W-2 people think I've worked hard for this money,
Yeah.
and I don't want to jump into something that I'm not sure about.
Yeah.
So the book, and the reason I'm here is because I really genuinely believe, Michael, your goal is to help people feel confident and equipped
Mhm.
to do something that most Americans have
Mhm.
been sort of because they've caught up in the rat race,
Yep.
they've been trained to think that that's not possible for me.
Yeah.
right?
No, I
And so
agree.
to hear a
That's
guy
those are
do
pretty
it,
cool.
yeah, like I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I think there's a lot in that you're peeling apart. I'm glad resonates in the book. Um, that I'm trying to show people that the process to get there is rather straightforward, and I never thought about doubt and determine, but I did try to address my own doubts because that's it's just an authentic review of where we came from. The other thing that kind of strikes me with this conversation is some people come into my orbit or my world and they feel that they can cut the line, right?
Ah,
Just because
uh-huh.
they have some money, right? Oh, I got some money.
Sure.
I can take a couple of L's. I'm going to learn. I'm going to go fast.
Hmm.
I hate that. Nobody can cut the line. You've got to go through the process. You've got to touch it, feel it, get the first one. I think the
Absolutely.
biggest mistake is, oh, I got 2 or 3 in a weekend. I'm like, what are you doing? Stop that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, and some people come in um highly motivated, right? Like they really want to get, they really want to get to their dream quickly. Um, and money is a big motivator. I mean, money is something that makes people feel, super confident. But when you take the loss, I'll tell you what, if you take a big loss, you can have a lot more doubt, right? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
you get a small win, you're closer to becoming more determined. You get a
Right.
big loss, you're further away from becoming more determined.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense. It's kind of like it works against, almost works against you, which is why I could understand why you would, why you would be totally against that. But I don't want to get away from the idea of discussing and making sure we insert this word, mindset,
Thank you.
right? Because it is a mindset.
Hmm.
And so you have to ask yourself, do I have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset? Right? Which is super important. A fixed mindset is gonna be um afraid of your phrase, do the work, right? A fixed mindset is gonna say, man, that sounds hard.
Hmm.
Work, that sounds hard. I've been doing that for 20 plus years already. I want to retire, right? I don't want to work anymore, right?
Right.
But really all you're really saying is do what it takes, right, to get to where you want to be. I like at the celebration, Coach Carson's presentation when
Yeah.
he said, "Find your number." Right. So
Hmm.
finding your number can be like that overall goal for you. But then creating smart goals, right? Small measurable goals over the course of time to help you get towards that. And so you got to first decide, like, am I confident enough to even do that? Right.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of things. So I don't want to lose the time. But here's the thing. One of the things you need to do in order to go from doubt to determined, right? And we're just dealing with doubt right now, is change your internal dialogue, the internal language that you use. So, for example, um, the info would be like, I'm not smart enough. That would be the negative language that you'd be saying, or I don't know enough to do that. So if you're a person who's been watching One Rental at a Time and read the book, then here's something you could say. I've procured the info needed to help me accomplish what I want to accomplish. Or you could just
Mm.
simply say this: I've learned what I need to learn in order to become a rental investor.
Yeah.
Just simple, right? I've
Right.
learned the simple steps, right? Everybody starts with a
Hmm.
building block. The second thing is this: reframing your thoughts, right? So reframing your thoughts. In therapy, we talk about reframing all the time. How do you look at something? How do you see it, right? What picture do you get? Some people, their first thought is, I'm sad, that I don't have much money to do this. People have more money than I do. And so, the reframing thought would be like, I have some money, I could save up to get a little bit more for that first down payment or whatever the case may be, whatever you need. Um, and and it might take me a little time to do that, right? So it's a matter of, again, small measurable goals. A lot of times we see things we want and we see the big picture, but we don't see the small steps to get to that big picture.
Hmm.
And I think that that's what's frightening for most people. The other thing I want to say too is sometimes because people have been W 2 people for a long time, and they've worked for a big juggernaut of an organization, they look at organizations as huge, large, um, just unfathomable things that they're like, I can't imagine being rich.
Mm,
I couldn't imagine being, that successful. Like it takes a lot of work. There's a lot of moving pieces, right? When you start talking about managing your property managers and maybe perhaps having your own, your own real estate company and investment company. Like when they think about the word company, firm,
mm,
organization, they think big. Yeah, monstrous,
yeah.
right? Like that's
Yeah.
too much for me to handle. But when you really help them to shrink that down and help them to understand, like it really is just a piece of paper. Like you just went in and
Yeah.
you just got a business license, and now in a list of businesses, like you're this organization, right? And
Right.
what's the big businesses might even be wondering, like, hey, who's this guy,
Yeah.
right? Like, who's this guy? I never seen him before.
Right.
And you don't have one employee to the first, and all you've got is one rental, right? So,
Hmm.
um, that's huge, and people need to think about their small wins before they worry about the really big win
Right.
overall. So it's just taking one step at a time. Of course, what we're talking about comes through, like, if you have a really big problem, I want to say this up front. If you have a really big problem with your thought processes, it could come from your childhood narrative, right?
Mhm.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he talked about how he
Yep.
grew up, right? So he was really dealing with his childhood narrative. But um, we have to keep in mind that mental health is super important when getting involved in anything, and especially with your finances, because money is a huge emotional, mental shifter. It
Hmm.
really influences people incredibly.
Hmm.
Um, so I would tell people all the time, like if you find that you're at a fight, flight, or freeze situation where most people are frozen, right? As they call it, analysis paralysis, right? That's a common word thrown around. People don't move because they're so busy looking at it, right?
Hmm.
Uh, get a therapist who is also willing to coach, right? Because some people's therapists only ask questions.
Mm.
They don't confront or challenge the individual and say, okay, that sounds great, but what are you doing to, okay, you're doing that. Well, come back and show me results of you doing that, right? They
Right.
don't challenge the person or push them or nudge them. And that's important to do. So you want to make sure you have a therapist that's really going to help you and get therapy. Like, I mean, therapy is not a bad thing. People have a bad stigma when it comes to it,
Hmm.
but get therapy. Change your company. That's the next thing. Change your company. Change the people that you're around.
Yeah. I call it firing your friends.
Yeah,
Right. Some of
yeah.
you just
Sometimes
need to
that happens.
fire your friends. Just come
Yep.
on.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
What's the
let's talk.
language they're using?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Are they saying like, man, that doesn't seem like it's reality? Or yeah, everybody wants to be rich, but or and I read something the other day. I think it was on one of your postings, but it said it was something you posted that someone else had said. It was like, it's not about being rich, it's about being free. I think
Yeah.
somebody posted
Yep.
that, and
Hmm.
you shared that, and it's so true. Like, it's not about being rich, it is about being free. And this is a freedom, not just a financial freedom, but also a mental freedom,
Yes.
and also an emotional freedom, right? The
Yeah.
emotional, mental wellness, spiritual wellness that you might get from having financial freedom,
Hmm.
um, makes it all worth it.
Yeah.
And you
There's
may
some.
have friends. Yeah, go for it, Mike.
No, I think there's just one thing I really want to hit hard. That again,
Yeah,
I'm
go for it.
so again, fire your friends, and those are people. But the other thing we have to realize in today's era is your device or devices
Big time.
and your feed. That's one of your friends. And if
Yep,
you're looking at your device and getting scared or nervous or whatever, that's on you. You
that's on
can
you.
change that.
That's on you. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that, because half the people that you're looking at aren't really your friends.
No,
Yeah, people are like, I have 1,000 friends. Like, no, you don't.
you got like seven, and you
Yeah,
got yeah everybody else. It's great, but
yeah.
I this thing really
Mm,
so I got on Twitter I think about a year ago,
Well,
and I wasn't being very mindful for it. And my feed very quickly became toxic,
wow.
doomer, all of that. I got purposeful with blocking folks, and it was amazing. In less than a week, my feed is positive. Now, every once in a while, something will sneak in, but you know
Of
what?
course.
I know where the block button is, and that goes
Absolutely.
away. I mean, if you could make Twitter the most toxic swamp of all social media positive, all of these feeds can be positive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely. And like you said, it's just a matter of the block button, right?
These
Click
algorithms are
one
meant
button and that's
to,
it.
that's it. It takes like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Block,
Yeah.
done. Yeah, but people need to watch this because again, if you're coming into this era, like you read what one rental at a time, you're like, hey, maybe this guy's onto something, but you're still stuck in that doubt phase. And you're watching the daily financial news. You're like, okay, I get it. He's consistent and he's not selling me anything. But then you have this one little freaking poison drop that comes in every week because you want to be balanced.
Right.
What the hell are you? Why are you poisoning yourself? Your mindset, the most valuable real estate. It's just mind-boggling to me.
Perfectly said. Yeah. Perfectly said. And I think that that's another thing too, Michael, is that what makes some people look at something 5 and 6 times is that in America, because it's such a capitalistic society, right? There's a lot of exploitation that happens. Somebody giving something away for pennies on a dollar is scary,
Mhm.
right? Like, what is this guy trying to pull me into, right? Like, what is he up to? Is he trying to like kind of do like a put a little trail in first and then like sell me a big course for 100,000 bucks, right? It seems too good to be true, right? Um, but that's not the case, and that's why when I read it, I was like, because I had worked in the world of banking, and so I was
Yeah,
thinking, I was like, man, this guy is who is the guy, right? So that's when I started watching you because I thought,
there's
I
got to be
thought, well,
something.
man, like this guy's different. Like he's writing something that's actually giving people the answers, right?
Mhm.
And helping them like through the process. Like not saying like, see, you can do it too, and then showing them the end results. But if you buy my course for like 3,000 bucks, right? Like this guy is saying, here's a book. It's not that much. If you read it and you do the work, you'll get some results out of it. I promise you that, right? And you can promise that because the information is true,
Right.
right? It's not loophole information like if you qualify for this or if you qualify for that. You literally are talking about the average Joe guy that
Mhm.
goes through the process, right? And even the guy who's not the average Joe, like saying like, hey, you saved up and you made some adjustments in your life. You could do it
Yeah.
too. So it's
Yeah.
accessible to everyone. Sometimes people, when something becomes too accessible, they're skeptical.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too good to be true. And so that that fuels sometimes that fuels doubt. But moving from doubt to determined. So that's what I have about doubt, right? Like I mean, again, here's a last point I wanted to make. There's a great movie that deals with mindset, and it's
Okay.
called From Homeless to Harvard. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
One more time. What was
True
it?
story, Homeless to Harvard.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
It's the story of Liz Murray. Um, Incredible story because here it is, this girl fully in a disadvantaged situation. Both parents like just not emotionally available,
Mhm.
not there, right? But she's brilliant. She has this mind that like just can't stop, just won't stop, right? And she is afforded an opportunity because somebody discovers that she's, incredible, and they say, "Hey, try this out," and she
Mm.
does, and here she is in Harvard, and I mean, she's like one of the greatest minds today. So, the thing is that you just have to show up, right? So you read the book and you say, okay, now what do I do? Well, you show up for yourself,
Mhm.
right? You show up for yourself. And sometimes mental health, poor mental health, can cause people to have a pause in that moment. Like, how do I show up for myself? Because they don't think much of themselves. So
Mhm.
that's another piece. And that's another reason why I would say, like, this is not just a matter of like, I just listened to this today and then I'm healed. Like go, if you really find like, I just can't get past that wall, Like, go get therapy. It's okay. It's all
Mhm.
right. It's not, there's nothing bad about it. As a matter of fact, I'm a proponent for like when people get annual physicals,
Yeah.
I think mental health should be a part of the annual physical. I
Well,
really
that,
do.
and I mean, we all maintain our cars, right?
Hmm.
What what makes us think that we can't maintain our minds or our mindset, our
Absolutely.
bodies? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, God forbid um people have a clear mind. It and here's the thing, Michael. I don't know if you realize this, and I hope I don't get you in trouble by saying this on here, but what you're doing by bringing mental health, like a discussion about mental health into this space, is number one, when you make something available to people that could possibly shift the economy, is one thing, right? But when you do that and then you say, hey, I'm going to help you get past some of the blockages in your thinking so that you can actually do it, um, yeah, it could really be an economy shifter.
Oh yeah.
Like people could start coming after you, like, who's this guy? Like, we got to stop him because he's changing the class system. he's 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 closing the class gaps, right? Like,
Yeah. I would be okay with that if the one rinse out of time movement got to a point where the Illuminati is coming at me. I'll accept that. I'll accept that. That's okay.
like we
Okay.
would have an upper class, middle class, lower class, and we have a Zuber class, right? That won't be definable, and that might be
Be okay with that.
scary.
I'd be okay. I'd be okay with that. I'll take all the arrows, right? That would I could die on that hill. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah,
But no,
people.
it's important to me that I
Well, I
I
could tell.
believe, yeah, I believe there is a way to do it. Again, I try to break things down simple so people can see it, right? I think getting wealthy or rich is simple,
Yep,
right? You've got to create dry powder, cut expenses, raise income, and or both. You got to become elite at something, i.e., a buy box and daily discipline, and then you
yep.
got to do it for 10 years.
You got to do
That's
it.
it.
Yep. You got to do it. Yeah,
Yeah, and then you
you got
get
to
the
do it.
Zuber class. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, yeah.
I like that.
That's good. That's good. Um, so let's shift into determine, right? Hopefully I gave you enough on doubt.
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
Cool. So determine, Merriam-Webster definition, right? Having reached a decision, firmly resolved. I'm clear now. I'm at a clear place in my mind. There's no instances where I feel like I can't, um, I won't, I shouldn't, I couldn't. I'm now at a place where I will,
Mm,
right? It just I will.
I
Um,
will. Okay.
yeah, and so to capture determine, number one, you have to proclaim you've made a decision. So you have to say it out loud, like I'm going to do this, right? You have to hear yourself say it, because when it's in you and you don't say it, it doesn't come out. It's still just a thought, and a thought is weaker than words,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
But when you say words, like words have power, like it's huge. And so when you say something out loud and you hear yourself say it, you believe it. But not only when you hear yourself say it, when you start saying it around other people and other people say it, like people, the right people, like again,
Hmm.
keeping the right people around you to constantly fuel that, that truth about yourself
Yep.
that you've now believed. I'm going to be um, financially free by 50, or I'm going to be financially free by 60, or whatever your age or number is,
Hmm.
or I'm going to have this much so I can go do this. Having those people around you constantly repeating that back to you. Hey man, are you still working on,
Yeah.
I remember you told me, holding you accountable, right?
Yeah.
Hearing that, proclaiming that is going to help you to continue to stay in that determined mindset.
Yeah, yeah, I'm glad you bring that up because that
Yeah,
that
go
was
for it.
that was something, just trying to tie this whole thing I built, frankly, by accident.
Mm-hmm.
The private Facebook group that we
Yeah.
have just for the students kind of cornered off. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not even one of the most active people there.
Mm.
What I'm seeing now is others are holding each other accountable. They're
Yeah.
helping, they're networking. It's a private space, right? There's a little ticket to get in, right? You got to buy the course. Then you get around all these other people speaking the same
Sure.
language, doing the same thing, and helping each other. That has been amazing to watch just build. It was a surprise. I built it again as an FAQ. I thought I would
Sure.
go and answer the same question over and over. but it is morphed into this just positive place on the internet. It's
Yep.
wild.
Yep. I think that's the thing that people love the most about the internet is the ability to talk across lines, right? And to ask questions that, I wouldn't normally be able to ask like every day of my neighbor, right? Like
Right.
I could choose the neighbor that I want to have, So if I want to have a bunch of rich neighbors with a lot of good information, like the internet is the place I can go do it, the
Right.
chat spaces. So yeah, that, I could certainly see how that would have become like a space where people would do that. And they have, and it's become very successful for them.
Mhm.
The second step would be like asking yourself to stay in that determined mindset is what steps have I already taken? So,
Mm.
like an example of that would be like, I've read the book, right? I'm starting to do the work. I'm seeing the results of some of that.
Yeah, I got a
Um,
buy box. I've looked at
Absolutely,
it
I
three
got to
days
buy
in a
box.
row. Yeah.
I got some daily discipline, right? Um, and out of what I've been doing so far, what are the results that I've been getting so far,
Mhm.
right? How have those steps been doing for me? How have they been helping me,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And so looking at the positivity of that,
Yep.
not saying, you know what, I haven't done much, or I still have a long way to go, but saying what I have done has produced this
Yeah.
is super important.
Yeah. For me, it's always the day, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
always the next task. I think a lot of people they look too far ahead, right? Stop looking around the corner, right? You're still 20 steps from the corner. Just
That's right.
take the next step.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Step number three is like, do I have my knowns? Right. So that's
Mm.
kind of going back to Coach Carson's presentation.
Yeah.
It's like, do I have my
Love that.
knowns? Of course,
Yep.
with the one reel at a time read, it's like, okay, there are some knowns in that you talk about, right? Like, do you know your market?
Yep.
Do you know your numbers, right? Do you have your spreadsheet? All those things, right? Those are the knowns. But then, of course, like Coach Carson was saying, was like, what is your number,
Yep.
right? Because you could be saying, like, I just want to do this, but what are you doing this toward?
Right.
Right? And so
Yeah.
like are you achieving, like, is what you're doing achieving something toward your overall known, right? So that, for him, it was, I want to have enough money to live abroad with my family, and be able to sustain my family wherever we are. And so he knew what he needed to do, right? He started to endeavor in that so that he would be able to have that.
Right.
And so that's something that you need to know. And do I have a SMART goal in place? Right? So to stay determined, you certainly have to have something that's driving you every day. And a SMART goal does that. Like that's your check-in, that's your daily check-in. So maybe if you're just getting into this, like ground level, you just started watching, Michael Zuber, you just started reading the book, maybe your SMART goal is getting to the end of the book and implementing everything he says to do in the book. Right? Maybe that's a SMART goal. Maybe you
Yeah.
make a SMART goal out of each step, right? When you create a buy box, like maybe your SMART goal is by the end of this week, I want to have a makeshift buy box and
Yeah.
just kind of see what that looks like for me, right?
Yes.
So that, that, and doing that every day, like having that at the back of your mind or at the front of your mind, wherever you want to put it, wherever it's comfortable for you, um, is going to keep you in a headspace of saying, I am doing this,
Yeah.
right? And I am is the same instances it fuels I will.
Yes. Now, the other thing that's really important for me here is a lot of people mistakenly think that the goal of one rental at a time, the buy box of daily discipline, is getting your first deal. I don't promise that to anyone.
Yeah,
I promise you getting to a point where you write your first great offer. Writing the great offer is what I want to celebrate. In fact, it is so important to
absolutely.
me. I'm creating another card, right? We have a gold card for first, black card. I want to start celebrating, right? It's tough today. It's expensive. The cost of
Yes,
capital is high. It's tough. But if you've gotten to a point where you can find a listing and the listing's 250 grand, but your numbers and you write an offer at 217 and the seller says no, I want to celebrate the 217. You have taken
absolutely.
the huge step. That is awesome. So I'm having my
Yeah.
team draft that right now.
No, wins are important. Celebrating wins are
Yes.
important. Huge, huge.
But the win isn't the deal.
No,
The win is writing your first great offer. It is freeing because once you do it once, you can do it
there it is.
twice, even three times.
There it is. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's probably, I mean, you'd have to tell me if this is true or not. It's probably one of the most intimidating steps.
It is, and it wasn't obvious to me. Because again, when I wrote this book and I started helping folks, I was 15, 20 years in. And dude, writing a great offer to me is easier than buying shoes, right? It's
Right.
just
Right.
it's just ingrained. So I
Uh-huh.
didn't see it right away. It
Yep.
wasn't until I started coaching people and everybody was talking about the deal. Like I have a golden ticket. Do I have one? Yeah, I have one here. Right. And people were starting to think that this was what I was trying to get people to. So it
Mm,
was on me. I made the mistake making the golden ticket the thing,
sure.
but it's the offer. That's what I'm trying to get people to. Because again, you might get a yes answer. I can't guarantee that. But if you know your numbers enough and you're disciplined to write that number that makes sense for you, that's the win. So I'm still
Absolutely.
learning. I'm still trying to improve. I want to celebrate writing great offers because once you do that, you can always do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I could see that because when I worked in banking, I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, like, writing an offer, like, I mean, negotiation, pitching a deal, like that's not difficult. But for
For
people who
some
are
people,
frozen,
yeah,
yeah, like people who are frozen, analysis paralysis, right? Like that is a huge step. And then thinking like, will they accept it? Like, or will they take my deal and just tear it apart? Like, will they take my offer and just tear it apart? Right. So there's certainly some anxiety pieces that go with that. So there has to be a
yeah.
confidence, in what you've written and what you've developed.
Yeah, I want to be very clear. If you're watching this still, thank you very much. But again, if you're in a market today that's expensive, cost of capital is high, and there's a property at 250, but it only works at 217, I want you to hear me. I would write that offer at 215 today.
Yeah,
And I would, and again, who cares if they say yes or no? That's not the goal. The goal is to do the numbers. And I want to celebrate that. And I do think it's free. I think that will just
definitely.
it'll unlock the frozen. Okay, Zuper said write it at 215, and I won't care if they say no or cuss me out or whatever.
Yeah,
Who cares? You did your job.
that's right.
Congratulations. Celebrate.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And and um and hang on to the celebration.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
big
Make a
deal.
record of it. Absolutely. Make a record
Take
of
a
it.
picture. Seriously, folks, one of my biggest regrets in life is I didn't take pictures where I could go back and look at Zuber at 30, Zuber at 32, Zuber at 34
Yeah.
of where we were. If you are stuck and frozen and you write that first, offer at 215 on a 250, take a picture of you holding it. Save that. Put it on the wall. That is a big freaking deal.
It is.
Save it.
It is. It's funny you say that in that way because again, celebration, one of the presentations, Sean Cannell,
Yeah.
right? Huge, really cool presentation. The greatest thing I took away from that, which I've actually been working on trying to get past to get into it, because I'm not really the most like photogenic person, and I'm not, I'm not like the celebrity face guy, right? But is really getting on, getting online and just offering, mental health help and just,
Yes.
from a spiritual perspective, right? I mean, that's my space. But in the aspect of what he was saying is like, don't be the guy who's like, I wish I did or I should have, right? So when you get those celebrations and you've, like you said, you've written your deal, you've written your offer, um, don't be the guy that's like, man, I wish I really celebrated that, right? Like, go ahead and grab a hold of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because again, why this is important to me so much is because I know, and I said in my book, you will have bad days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. One of my
They'll
7
tell you.
rules is you're going to make mistakes, learn and move on. Right.
Absolutely.
But if you have this picture on the wall, if you're the frozen type, because this is the deal, this is real life, right? You're the frozen type. You write the first offer, you unlock something, you have this memory on your fridge.
You got it.
Then 6, 9 months from now, you get your first deal, and your tenant, like mine in my book, never pays rent. That could go right back to being out. If you go
It could
back to
be.
your touchstone, you'd be like, okay, This is part of the process. We knew this could happen.
Yep.
You know, it's important to have that so you can just go. I mean, I have a cork board in my hallway right there with pictures of people from One Rental at a Time, the cards, the books. I walk by it at least twice a day. And it's just like,
It's a
all
motivation
right,
board.
I'm good. I'll show up again. I'll talk to some people. Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. Um, and then, you know, the fifth point here is that I have is just real simple. Your words. Do the work. Like once you realize you have all those things in place to stay determined,
Mhm.
then just stay at it, right? Like just continue to do the work.
Yeah,
Um, like you said, show up. Like just keep showing up, right?
show up. Yep.
And then what's just super important is track the intricate progress of the success. I said that earlier, then recording the losses, right? So a lot
Yeah.
of people focus more on losses in life than they do on successes. And what's funny is most people have a lot more good days than they do bad days.
Yeah.
But the problem is that the system we live in, I guess what they've been calling the matrix mindset,
Yep.
is that we focus more on the losses than we do the wins. So
Yeah.
it's
I've
it's
actually seen
super
some
important to
people
focus
turn
on the wins.
wins into losses.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh, it's like, how did you do that mental gymnastics? It was a
Yeah.
win. How are you
Right.
looking at that as a loss?
Yeah. 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 Well, and you know, for some people, like that's where you got to ask them, like, you know, what were you thinking? Because sometimes people feel more comfortable in a loss.
Ooh,
They do.
so
Some
true.
people's dysfunction is their function. And so as a
Oh,
therapist, a lot of times
wow.
I sit with people and I say, man, you know, it sounds like you have a propensity to just sort of want to feel bad. Like like
Hmm.
like you it seems like you like to feel bad or like you like to find what's wrong versus what's right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you again, that's a place that, you know, person might need help. Um and it can come that can come in so many ways. Um you know, our mind is such a delicate thing. Our brain is
Yeah.
such a delicate thing. One thing can shift your whole mindset, the way you think. And so
Yeah.
you gotta protect it. Like you said, it's the most valuable real estate. Your brain is the most valuable real estate. Um, the other one is mentally change where you're standing. Mentally
Oh,
change where you're standing. Yeah, I'm gonna explain that one.
okay.
It's so you can see where you're headed, right? So the idea is you can't
Oh,
believe it
okay.
if you can't see it, right? So sometimes like there could be something in the way. And so you could say, you know, I'm seeing what I'm seeing and how I'm seeing it is this. And so sometimes it might be a matter of shifting where you're standing, right? So that you could see around what's in your way. And so, you know, again, some of the people that you surround yourself with can help you to do that. Like maybe your perspective is only one angle,
Right.
and because you're connected with someone else who understands that a little bit more, that subject a little bit more, that idea a little bit more, um, they can help you shift your mindset about it.
Hmm.
So that ADU guy help people
Yeah,
shift their mindset about ADUs,
absolutely.
right? The value of ADUs, right? That's just an example of someone who can help you shift your mindset about something that maybe society or you know the matrix has been kind of like making it or villainizing it, so to say, right?
Mm.
Um, he made it, you know, to the point where you could look at it from a more helpful perspective.
Oh, yeah. Derek's amazing. Um,
Yeah, awesome.
one of the important things for me to do is I've kind of curated these millionaires who I invite back on the channel is all of them kind of it's a purpose-built group, right?
Sure,
With intention. Because I want people to realize there's lots of ways that you can do it. And
definitely.
um, yeah, this is fun for me. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that
really
Friday
cool.
night
Mhm.
that we had before the celebration really kicked off,
Yep.
I think Dion said that. He was like, you know what's really cool about this whole thing is that like I think he said it in a joking way. He's like, I don't agree with anybody up here,
Yeah, he did.
you know? And his whole point was that, you know, we all have a different way that
Yeah.
we're getting to where we want to go. And all these different ways are offered to you as opportunities and options, right?
Yeah.
My way might work, his way might work, you know. depending on what market you're in, right? Like
Yep.
what market are you in? Everybody's in a different market. So,
Yeah.
it matters. The last thing I want to say is this, change your reading diet. Because
Mm.
one of the things I had been doing is always reading things that were selling me a big picture of success, but not steps toward the picture of success.
Yes.
And One Reel at a Time, it was the first book I've ever read. And so, like, I mean, I guess maybe this is another pitch, but it really is an honest pitch. I don't want anybody watching this to think like, Michael got me on here so I could pitch the book. No, I'm just an honest guy. Literally, my wife was watching. I could care less in the very beginning. She kept telling me, kept talking to me about it. And really, Michael, to be very honest with you, because we have a healthy relationship, I was hearing her, but I was still going to work every day. I was like, no, I'm
Right.
not going to stop working. Like, that sounds great, but I'm not throwing all my coins in one basket because this guy online is saying, but I was, we were
I like
there
it.
in the
Yeah.
morning. She had you on. I was listening in the backdrop, financial news. I already knew a lot about the financial world. So I was like, okay, the guy sounds okay. He's correct. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So then, so then when I got the book, I was like, man, this seems like I was skeptical. This seems
Yeah.
too good to be true. But
Mm.
then when I started looking at our numbers and I started, she did all the math, she did all the work, and she presented it to me. I said, okay, yeah, this could work. And we
Mm.
dove in and we went crazy with it, right?
Mm.
Um, but right there is when it told me I got to change my reading diet because some books, they sound really great, they're super fluffy,
Yep.
but they don't really deal with the step-by-step process that helps you to get there.
That was important to me because I didn't want to create a motivational book,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't, one rental at a time is really, it's not a motivational book. It's, hey,
No, in no
I'm some
way.
guy who suffered a big loss, who read
Yep.
Rich Dad Poor Dad, and this is what happened next.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And it was remarkably written in that way. You did a great job. Um, so the quote I have there is, "You are what you read." People say you are what you eat, right? But you are what you read. And so read more books conducive to your personal
Yeah.
goal and conducive to your personality.
Do you
So
have a recommendation or two you want to throw out there after one rental at a time?
so here's my recommendation. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
book specifically, but if you go to Amazon
Mm-hmm.
and you type in best mindset books,
Ah,
there's
okay.
a book that's going to pop up at the top called Mindset, the New
Okay.
Psychology of Success. That book is on every mindset book reading list. Um, and then I think it's called Flinch. There's another book called Flinch, or
Okay.
uh, I think it's called Flinch. But um, and I'll confirm that with you. But um, it's a book in the instance of like flinching in the face of fear, like
Mm.
in
Yep.
the face of danger. Um, so getting over that fight, flight, or freeze, right? But ultimately, I would tell people all the time, like, go get therapy and check and see if like you're
Mm-hmm.
really thinking right about yourself. What I mean by that is, oftentimes people, because they've been in the humdrum of the rat race, they've started to think about themselves in certain ways that are very unhealthy. Like, I'm
Yeah.
only good at this, right? That's
Yeah.
an
It's
unhealthy thought.
almost a drone like behavior. You just
It
kind
is.
of,
It really is.
and that's scary to me. That's frightening. That's not okay.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Um, Probably like people in their 40s up, 40s and
Mhm.
older, right?
Sure.
Because the millennials, like, I mean, man, they're like, I don't care what you say, I'm gonna go try it,
Yeah. No,
right?
I much healthier. Yeah. I
Yeah.
like it.
But the 40s and up, right? They're all like, I don't know,
Yeah.
and I think it's because they've been trained to think like life is more safe, just kind of having a routine every day.
I think
Um,
they're comfortable. I
but what
don't.
they don't realize is that the routine that they're in is a routine that they have actually created.
Oh, amen.
And so if you could think about creating a different routine for yourself, right? And that creation of a different routine is really literally just a small shift of mindset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
But
agree.
it takes getting to the bottom. Like sometimes for some people, it takes getting to the bottom of a place and saying, man, I got to do something.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes from. I think listening to your story, um, it was hilarious when you were talking about being in, I think it was Taipei, you said, and
Yeah.
you're in this van, and all these like this other whole other foreign language really loud is around you, and you just kind of put your earbuds in and start, you kind of go into your own world.
Yeah.
Um, that was like the moment of decision for you, kind of.
It was. Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
but that was a shift, right? Like that was a shift in mindset for you, and um, just that moment is
I can remember it.
small window
You
of time.
remember these moments. Yeah.
Yeah, small window of time. But I'll tell you what, if not for that moment, you wouldn't have had the book.
Nope. Shoot,
You and
nothing.
I would be just
I'd probably have a job.
this is what I'm saying. Yeah.
I would have probably been so depressed I'd have had to get a job if it wasn't for that moment, which I'll never forget. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Uh,
So I know you said you want to go before 8. So I want to give you the last few minutes just to ask you, like, any feedback you have for me, if I helped you today in any
so
way,
I have two thoughts. Two
sure, go
thoughts.
for it.
Number one, you have to create a YouTube channel or whatever vehicle it is for you. There is so much in mindset that we've haven't touched or uncovered. You could do little. I mean, you have a way of delivering. It's kind of your being a pastor and this. I think you have a way of delivering. I think you would have wild success.
I appreciate
So
it.
um, I would take a personal challenge of doing one a week on something, and
I'm going
I
to
think
accept
you
that
would be
challenge.
amazed. Yeah, I
I'm
think
going to
you'd be
accept that
amazed.
challenge. Absolutely.
And then second, I hadn't planned to do this, but I'm doing it anyway.
Go
I
for
don't
it.
know if you and Tamika are planning to come to next year's celebration,
And we'll be
but
there.
I want you to be a speaker. I
Oh,
want you to be
wow.
one of the speakers. And if you say yes, then your VIP tickets are comped.
I'm
Um,
game. I'm game, man.
awesome.
I'm game. Absolutely. You let me know what you want me to cover, and I will bring a wealth of stuff. And I'll even make it interactive. If people want to be interactive, we'll do
Oh,
some on the spot stuff. Absolutely.
all right.
Definitely.
You are going to be a speaker at the next event. I am thrilled you said yes to that. So I will add you to the list right now. Yeah, I
I'm honored.
strongly suggest one a week, a quick 5-10 minute kind of, ask
Take
yourself
you up
this
on that
question.
challenge.
Yeah. And let me
Yeah.
know. I'll celebrate you when it goes out. I'll point people to it.
Cool.
So
Cool.
Fred, you're amazing. Thank you for saying yes to Vegas. Thank you for being a part of the channel. We got to do this more regular.
Mike, I appreciate you today, man. Thanks a lot. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for taking that step, writing that book. And I'm glad to connect with you, man. It's
That's
been awesome.
been fun. We're going to help a lot of people, Fred.
I tell you
Thank
what,
you.
that's the goal. That's the goal.
There
All
you
right,
go.
man. Have a good
Thanks.
one.
You too.